Hey everyone, welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here for this daily astrology report for November 17th, 2020. The moon is going to transit from Sagittarius to Capricorn today, going from this optimistic and identification with collective values into the manifestation, getting down to it, getting very serious emotionally. So the sun is still in Scorpio. We just had a new moon. So we are at the beginning of a new lunar cycle. I talked a lot about this in the new moon report. You're welcome to go back and check that out. This is a cycle that is going to challenge us to apply the moment of transformation to the rest of our lives, right? It's one thing to go to hear the sermon, go to be inspired by the event, go to take the vision quest, the ayahuasca ceremony, to have the dark night of the soul, all of these aspects that are really part of the Scorpio archetype of going deep underneath the layers to get at real deep truth about power, about shared experience, about ritual and symbolism, and all of the aspects that Scorpio represents. The challenge for this month, especially with eclipses, is going to be how do we integrate those peak experiences into our actual life, because that's really where it counts, and I think many people struggle with holding, because those experiences are momentary. They're not meant to be forever. And that is the real challenge, is to take those peak experiences and then bring them back into our everyday life that seems kind of mundane and challenging and goes, frustrating and all of the human emotions. But that is the challenge. And this is the intention that we hopefully had set over the new moon over the weekend. So Mercury is in opposition to Uranus today. This is a big deal because these two aspects represent the mind and the consciousness. Mercury is the actual working of the mind, our communication skills, our ability to sense and perceive reality in our immediate environment. It is language, it is learning, it is data, it is knowledge and information. And Mercury is in Scorpio. So we're traveling into the underworld again, still not out of shadow. That happens at 11 to 12 degrees. So a couple more days, and then Mercury is moving into new territory. But now we are going back over some old territory. And if you remember, this is the degree of the sun at the last full moon that was conjunct Uranus. So we have the aspect of our mind that in Scorpio is at least guiding us into this space without having to be trapped there. That is the thing about Mercury or Hermes. They were able to move into the underworld and out because of their swiftness, right? So, and also Mercury or Hermes was considered a guide for passage of souls into the underworld as well. And so there is this ability to move into these spaces of deeper understanding, deeper knowledge, depth of feeling into the subconscious, to the darker realms that are often in the shadows, without having to get stuck there. Now, the challenge is to not get pulled in one direction or the other completely, and to find the balance point here, which is the fulcrum. Now, Uranus in Taurus has just been relentless. The disruption that Uranus represents, because it's the collective consciousness, it is the collective third eye, it's higher light that Uranus represents. And it's often when we are exposed to this higher light that radical transformation is triggered, and it's usually very disruptive. And in Taurus, we're talking about our actual resources, we're talking about our assets, we're talking about what's valuable to us, and that can be financial, physical, material, our relationships, right? Because Venus rules Taurus. Anything that has value to us, anything we consider an asset, anything that we have inherited in this life is Taurus. It is the natural world. And specifically what we've been learning with Uranus, what has been triggering our awakening, our ascension process, just waking up to the fullness of who we collectively are, has been really challenged by constant disruption in the material world and what we value. And it specifically has been challenging us to learn how to find happiness in the dark times by really engaging with what we do value, and coming to deeply understand what it is we do value. And so this opposition is going to provide us a chance to, in some ways, we can go into that space with Mercury and start to really investigate some things that we might have already kind of gone over, but have gone over retrograde, and now we're going back over direct, but also being anchored in some way with this Uranus energy that is still challenging us to be able to, despite the darkness, right? We can get trapped in here, and it has not been easy with the sun in Scorpio, especially the new moon. It was very challenging, especially to have a dark moon in Scorpio like that. It really sometimes feels like that there is no escape from what we find down there. So with Mercury, at least we have the ability to take ourselves out of it when it's too much, and anchor ourselves back into, as much as this process has been disruptive with Uranus, at least it is teaching us something. It is stimulating our transformation that is actually continued and completed by Pluto. Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, the lord of death, the ruler of the underworld, and Pluto is the harbinger of this transformation, because you absolutely have to, something has to die in order for the phoenix to rise from the ashes. And in this time and period, it is the actual matrix of reality, our cultural, social, economic institutions of structure and power that are being dismantled. So that is the long game with Pluto. Uranus is the trigger. Radical transformation, lightning bolt, right? It is turns us on our side. And that consistently has been happening in order to stimulate, specifically in the realm of Taurus, what we value in our assets and the physical world around us, in order to stimulate that awakening. Now, today, as of the 16th, Black Moon Lilith was actually conjunct exactly with Uranus. So it felt like, in order to do that, there was this moment today that that it was almost out of self-preservation to be able to do this, not even thinking about it, like almost to the point that we are not going to survive if we do not figure out a way to create happiness in dark times. And with Scorpio now, we feel it's like we'll be able to go into these spaces as long as there's a calmness to us, as long as our minds are calm and undisturbed, and able to see things just like off the reflection of the water, we're going to be able to see much deeper than we normally would if our minds are really, really disturbed. And this is going to help balance out all of this crazy, just the disruption that Uranus is constantly providing. Our minds can really work in our favor. And the daily medicine reading for today had Archangel Gabriel come in as one of the guides, and expression, communication, the realm of Mercury, our minds, if we can keep it calm, if we can keep our mind like the still surface of water, we're going to be able to see very, very deeply, and give ourselves some insight that we may not have had otherwise. Now, this is also where the full moon was in the last lunar cycle, this degree. The sun was where Mercury is in this opposition. The moon came around not too long ago. And if you remember, this is the drilling down. And so with the moon, it really felt like we were getting our teeth drilled in some ways. It was just like, oh my God. Unless you knew not to like consume all of that junk food and candy, and then you wouldn't even need your cavities to be filled. But if you didn't, then we really felt it. And a lot of us, even if we're trying to be responsible and not indulge ourselves, there's a lot of things right now that benefit from our indulgence. So it takes a lot of energy to work against that. So with Mercury here, it will allow us to see it from a mental perspective and kind of separate ourselves from it emotionally, and we don't have to express ourselves through it, like the sun represents. We're expressing our personality through it. We're just engaging with it mentally, looking at it in a very rational and logical way, and balancing out all of this all of this disruption that Uranus is constantly bringing about for us. So the moon in late Sagittarius is going to sextile Venus. This degree is going to be the degree of the total solar eclipse at the end of the month on the end of the cycle, which is the 14th of December. It won't be in a sextile to Venus by that time. But this is, there is a lot of good fortune potentially here where the moon meets Venus, but the sextile, it does require that we participate in some way with this harmonious connection. And Venus is very much about feeling in her body, in our bodies, in the, again, the material world around us, what it means to be balanced, the scales of balance, and specifically developing that extra sense, that extra ability to stabilize ourselves spiritually in the process of balancing or feeling for the balance. And if we're able to do that, and we can really feel that in our relationships, in the world around us, in all of our material transactions, in what feels good, what provides harmony in our lives, if we can do that, then it's going to allow us to really feel the fortune, the good fortune, the possibility of optimism that this degree of Sagittarius represents. Now, the total solar eclipse at this point, I don't know how I feel about it yet. I mean, I talked about it a little bit in the new moon report, and the fact that it's at the South Node, and eclipses are usually very karmic, and they reverberate for months because there is a shadow cast. It's not, especially in the case of a total solar eclipse, it is the moon passing between the sun and the earth. And so our own emotional state, the aspects that are hidden from us in our subconscious, that are emotional and intuitive and very watery, the emotional landscape is blocking the sun. And so how we feel about these things and how it is expressed when the eclipse comes around, how we feel about it is going to eclipse what we do about it, and that is going to cause a shadow for months. And I think when we get closer to it, it'll become more and more apparent what that might actually look like. But for now, this Venus in Libra, this stabilizing aspect that we can develop to help us feel balance in our relationships and the projects and the material aspects of our life, can really, I think, really help us feel the good fortune and to see it, the possible good fortune. But this requires that stabilizing point within us to be able to move through that space, because it's not always, I mean, this is a very positive degree when, taken out of context. It's the eclipse that I'm really concerned about when it comes to this. But this is why this is important, because again, we can feel inside of us and the aspects of our lives what it means to be stabilized amidst polarization. Now, the moon's going to move into Capricorn today, and then is going to square Chiron, and that's just going to put some brakes on some things emotionally. Chiron is constantly in this place about self-actualizing our wounds, right? And especially asserting ourselves with, if we are a victim or a savior, and making sure that we are asserting that aspect of ourselves with Chiron. And so when the moon comes in to square it, it's really it's going to create quite a conflict, but it's going to be important that we lean into it, because it will require that emotionally that we come to understand that we need to clear up cycles at this threshold before moving forward. And Chiron is going to make that very difficult, because that has nothing to, it's just charging forward. Aries is cardinal fire. It is just go, it is forward action. And when we're talking about Chiron, it's just, we're acting on our wounds, either victim or savior. And the moon is going to be like, whoa, 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 let's just stop at this threshold and evaluate everything that we're at, right where we're at right now emotionally, before we charge forward. And that's going to be very difficult for people, but this this opposition with Mercury and Uranus today, I think, is going to really help with that. If we can really find that balance point and be willing to investigate further rather than act on things, and realize that we do have the mental capacity to investigate and to understand and to go deeper. But we also will find the most awakening by trusting the natural cycles that are unfolding. Because no matter what you do, you don't, there's no way to bypass natural law. And I think this is really where Uranus can benefit us, despite how disruptive it really is. So that's the astrology for the 17th. Everything you need is in the description box below. If you find this content helpful, please consider subscribing. It really helps, and liking the video too. It really helps impact the algorithm, because if you find this helpful, then other people probably will find it helpful too. And I'm offering all of these dailies, and my dailies on Facebook are all by donation. I don't charge for any of them, and I really just want to be of service to people. And so I want this information to get out there. So please consider helping that process. And if you're interested in reading or getting on social media to follow me, there, it's all in the description box. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you on the next daily video. Bye.